Hello and welcome to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, your daily guide to decoding current affairs the smart way for UPSC examination. It's November 17th, 2025 and today's edition brings two insightful analysis articles for mains examination. First, cryptocurrency and its dark side. We investigate the regulatory challenges and the risks posed by the rise of digital currencies. Second, strategic garrisons at the chicken neck at Siliguri corridor, a crucial analysis of the security and infrastructural developments in the vulnerable Siliguri corridor of our country. Finally, in our simplified section, we will be covering various articles which are extremely relevant for the upcoming prelims 2026 examination. So let's begin. Hey guys, welcome back again. We will be starting the very first article with cryptocurrency because there have been an extensive set of articles in the Indian Express today which is dedicated regarding the basics of cryptocurrency and also the various linkages we have with cyber security of our country and also money laundering, making it extremely important for our GS3. Also, when it comes to the basic operation of cryptocurrency, we need to also know the science behind it, and that is why we will be taking this topic from the very basic concepts to the very advanced issues which are discussed within it. So let us start with the very basic context of the day is that the modern currencies, specifically when we talk about the modern currencies, we are dealing with cryptocurrencies. These are now posing existential threat towards our own national security ambitions. Now let us understand it via understanding it from the very basics. Now, when we talk about money, we actually understand it is actually the medium of exchange of goods and services between various peoples. Now, over a period of time, the concept of money has come a long way from the barter system to, right now, fiat currencies. Now, fiat currencies are those currencies such as coins and the notes which we use in our day-to-day lives, which are issued by the government of the day, or maybe in the case of UK by a king or a queen in their country. So, we mean that there has to be an authority, a central authority, which essentially must be backed by an act of the parliament or say the act of the monarchical government, which will be issuing the fiat currencies, and hence it makes it a legal tender. Now, the normal notes and the coins which we use all around us are issued by the government and they are backed by a law. Actually, they are known as a legal tender. Now, when we come to the cryptocurrencies, they are actually very different. Cryptocurrencies are born out of technology which is known as a blockchain technology. Imagine the blockchain technology is actually a system where we have so many computers connected with themselves. Now they are connected via various encryption links and there are various intermediaries in between known as cryptocurrency miners who try to track the various transactions on the cryptocurrencies blockchain, and then it tries to convert the various blocks based on the various transactions that we make. For example, if I buy an iPhone on some online platform that only accepts cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin, so I have to pay, for example, an X amount in cryptocurrencies, for example, say in Bitcoin. Now, what the transaction will be looking like in that cryptocurrency blockchain will be that I will be making the transaction and there will be some miners who will be recording the transactions. They will be then creating a block which will be inserted within that blockchain, and hence for the insertion of this block, the miners will be getting incentives in the newly minted cryptocurrencies or bitcoins. So in this way, the entire architecture of cryptocurrencies are functioning, which are actually digital tokens which can be bought, which can be sold, which can be transferred without a bank in the middle. Did you notice any bank transactions when I was describing this? No. There was not even a government entity which is involved in blockchain operations, and that is exactly why it is known as a decentralized currency. That is, it is not a centralized currency such as, for example, like the same we have seen in the case of fiat currencies. It is actually issued by the people themselves, and hence it is also sometimes known as the next form of currency, the next evolution of currencies, because going forward maybe the people to people trust will be so much, including technology, that people will be directly exchanging bitcoins or other cryptocurrencies without the involvement of banks or the government in the middle. And there are many, social groups all around the world which advocate the no role of government or the banks in we, in our day-to-day financial transactions. So this is exactly why we are seeing the, cryptocurrencies becoming too popular over a period of time. And that is why we have to understand that cryptocurrencies, if you want to buy them at any point of time, you can do the same at various cryptocurrency exchanges. These are centralized in some point of time. For example, if that cryptocurrency is regulated by a private corporation, or say it is maintained by a private corporation, then it is a centralized cryptocurrency exchange. So we have so many centralized cryptocurrency exchange which are sometimes also legalized by the various governments of the entire world. Then we have decentralized cryptocurrency exchange. Now decentralized are sometimes backed by some organizations, or sometimes are created by the own individuals themselves. And finally, at the end of the day, we have peer-to-peer cryptocurrency exchange. Now these are the most controversial kind of cryptocurrency exchange. Now these exchanges are just like, our stock markets. We buy our various shares and the bonds that we want at the stock markets, right? So in the same way, there are various people who also buy the same cryptocurrencies at their own stock markets, or say at their own cryptocurrency exchanges. So this is exactly what we understand by the last definition of peer-to-peer cryptocurrency exchange, wherein the transactions or the various amounts of, say, cryptocurrency which are exchanged are directly dealt only by the people themselves, and mostly they are very, very informal in nature. So this is exactly what we have to understand and summarize, that cryptocurrencies are controlled by no central authority. They are stored in your digital wallets. You cannot store them in your physical wallets. You can convert the physical money that you have into cryptocurrency, but you cannot have them in your physical wallets. Also, when we talk about the main technology or the ledger or the account system, it is done on a blockchain. Now, why am I elaborating these in great details? Because there have been PYQs in 2020, and also there have been so many PYQs in the means related to cryptocurrency, and most importantly related to how emerging technologies and globalization is contributing to money laundering. So this is actually the main subject of our discussion today. You let me know in the comments what is the answer to this 2020 prelims PYQ. Now let us actually start. What is the matter? Now what happened, guys? There are some groups of journalists that are known as investigative journalists. So they actually conduct various investigations based on some corruption charges, some scandals, and sometimes some very, very serious financial operations. In the recent times, in the last 1 decade maybe, Indian Express actually launched a very, very deep investigation into the various tax havens all across the world. And that is when even the very big celebrities were exposed having their own accounts in the tax havens of Cayman Islands and the various Solomon Islands all over the world. But we are actually going beyond those tax havens. And right now we are actually talking about how cryptocurrencies are very, very attractive to the criminals of 21st century. And when we are talking about criminal, guys, there are way loads of criminal activities which are taking place only by using crypto accounts. Now let us actually understand how this is taking place. The Indian Express has given a very, very fantastic diagram which you can also copy down in your, say, notes and use in your mains answers too. Firstly, these crypto racketers, what they try to do, they try to bring in people who are not yet part of the cryptocurrency blockchain, right? One way you can do it by selling legalized goods and services. For example, there are so many online marketplaces which actually sell legal goods and services, and they accept cryptocurrencies in return. On the other hand, criminals, they do not use white money. They do not use digital money. For example, the money we have in our bank accounts and the services of UPI and so many other applications that we have, they do not use those things. What they do, they use those kind of transactions which are extremely secretive, right? They do not try to expose their transactions or say modus operandi to the authorities, and that is why they are using right now cryptocurrencies. How they are using it? They are actually identifying some people who are not yet part of the cryptocurrency. They are actually trying to fraud those kind of victims. Then they try to capture their bank accounts. They totally gain control over their bank accounts using various means such as OTP scams and so many other aspects, right? And those accounts are then known as mule accounts. Now what they do, the various criminals, they combine all the mule accounts, individual bank accounts which are frauded, and they convert them into pool accounts. And then using those pool accounts, they make online transactions. They try to convert those bank money into crypto money, right? And these crypto coins are then try to, put in various other kind of, say, cryptocurrency coins. They try to mix all the cryptocurrencies using so many other, say, types of cryptocurrencies, their varieties. They try to mix everything at one place, and they try to do those kind of transactions which they suit for. For example, they make transactions in various other wallets. They make transactions to various other persons on that same cryptocurrency blockchain. They try to send the transactions or the money to various offshore accounts. Maybe you have some accounts or say money in India, you want to illicitly escape paying taxes, and that is why you want to send your money abroad. This is also what they are trying to do. They are trying to send money to abroad to escape paying taxes and various other functions. And also, if you see the recent article, a Ghaziabad trader channelized crime proceeds of 1.3 crore to Dubai-based wallet in 2024. A Delhi-based businessman also tried to do the same at the tune of 4,000 crore internationally through various fabricated invoices and shell companies. If you look at these kind of transactions, these were earlier taken as a part of Hawala transactions. Hawala transactions were very, kind of very informal transactions which actually facilitated money laundering. Right now, Hawala plus money laundering plus cryptocurrency has become the new big evil. And this is exactly what, the concern is right now. These crypto transactions are extremely attractive for those criminals because these are not completely anonymous. This means that while the transactions are visible on the blockchain, but when the money goes into their wallets and the person behind the wallet, these are totally anonymous. And this is exactly what the crypto criminals are doing. They are trying to hide themselves behind these wallet accounts, and these wallet accounts are created at various other foreign countries. These are not even created in India. They are created at various Singapore or say Cayman Island or various other shell companies. And via these companies, via these foreign holding companies, they actually operate everything. And also if you look at the various agencies in India, for example, NIA, ED and various other state governments, they have actually unearthed so many sources of cryptocurrencies. For example, if you can actually look at the money and where it is coming from, they're coming from the terror funds, COVID funds, darknet, cyber scams, hacking, Hawala, data leak, money laundering, and so many other instances. If you look at the various countries on radar, we have Dubai, Pakistan, China, Cambodia, Myanmar, and so on. So these are actually the various investigations which are revealing us. Also, if you look at this kind of, say, multifaceted illegal activities which these criminals are doing, they're involved in cricket betting, non-cricket betting, gold, even forex trading. That is trading in foreign currencies, which are also done by cryptocurrencies, right? So based on that, there are so many kinds of crypto scams. Now, when we talk about the risks that are posed by these people, obviously, we have to talk about the government of India. Now, when we talk about the government of India, we do not have any nationalized crypto law, right? We do not have any regulator. We do not have any one person to go and complain to, that is the ombudsman or even investor protection. But a unique thing is that crypto trading is actually allowed in India. We will be looking into the exact reason in the next slide. Now, when we talk about the RBI's position, RBI was never comfortable with a new form of money, that is cryptocurrency, because RBI already has been dealing with the legal tender in India, that is notes and the coins, right? Already RBI is facing so many difficulties in managing the money supply, leading sometimes to inflation or deflation in the country, right? So RBI does not want to take this extra headache, because whenever you have a new currency which is created by the people themselves, right, it leads to the loss of monetary sovereignty of the RBI. That means RBI is, guys, it's actually the main authority in India when we talk about controlling the money supply. Now, whenever this new picture comes in, that is the new cryptocurrencies which are coming in, RBI cannot control it, right? These are privately owned currencies. So that is why RBI's influence or any central bank's influence will be going down. And they will be losing their sovereignty, their own sovereign decision over money supply. Next, we definitely have financial stability risk. We have so many influencers, we have so many celebrities, we have even the business people who are very, very prosperous, who actually openly advocate this kind of cryptocurrencies. But whenever, the market does not follow their own ambitions, the market crashes and it leads to the losses of various other people, sometimes maybe who are actually very, very poor and vulnerable of some promised returns they have invested and hence suffered losses. Next, obviously, we will be again investigating some reasons into how the money laundering and also some terror financing things are happening. For example, even on the largest cybercrime map, investigators have linked the various transactions to even Al-Qaeda, right? Also, sometimes whenever our own international investors in India, they try to extract profits out of cryptocurrencies, they will be at any point of time withdrawing money from India, and this will be leading to capital flight all of a sudden, and it will be leading to currency depreciation, various other ill effects on the Indian economy. And finally, cryptocurrencies are actually not backed by any asset. They are actually based on blockchain, which is a virtual chain of computers and some miners, some expert people, right? They are not backed by any gold. They're not backed by any dollars. There are some forms of cryptocurrencies which are actually known as stable coins, but these are not pure cryptocurrencies. Stable coins are actually those kind of coins which have a component of gold or dollar or some stable asset combined with the value of cryptocurrency. So those are actually, best of the both worlds. But cryptocurrencies are actually very, very volatile in nature. They do not have any assets backing them. Now, whenever we talk about RBI want private cryptos to be banned. Also, they are actually pushing for central bank digital currency, which is RBI's own blockchain, right? RBI has created their own blockchain and created their own cryptocurrency. Now, RBI wants to give a competition to the cryptocurrencies, right? And that is why RBI is actually compelling the people of our country, the Indians, to use more of digital rupee or e-rupee or the central bank digital currencies. Now, when we talk about India's regulatory issues, we have to understand that our law enforcement authorities or agencies are facing serious issues. Firstly, when we talk about data issues in this entire transaction chain, foreign user data are often denied by international crypto exchanges. For example, if I see as CBI in our country a transaction which is taking place to fund a terrorist camp in India, which is operated by a Pakistani in Istanbul. So what happens to the information that I want to extract from the Istanbul authorities? According to this kind of technology of blockchain, this data, the user data, is actually very difficult to obtain. Also, when we talk about the data storage and the various analysis, which is actually not done properly at the various crypto exchanges, sometimes most of these exchanges are peer-to-peer exchanges, which are actually operated by the people themselves, right? Next, when we talk about the assets and the ED or the NIA or the CBI or the state governments which are trying to seize, right, international exchanges do not comply with freeze or seizure requests. So when we talk about the crypto exchanges, right, those exchanges which we talked in the very first slide, those authorities are not actually obeying our own agencies, the law enforcement agencies, right? We do not have a centralized platform in India to manage those kind of digital assets too. Also, when we talk about the probing cases, right, the investigation of cases, right, we do not have a standardized investigation formula. For example, in the case of some cryptocurrency investigation, we do not have a proper guideline, a standard guideline to be followed. We do not have a central authority for registration of tokens or new coins in cryptocurrencies. We have so many amount of unregistered exchanges which are operating within our country only without any oversight. And also, we have legal blocks. For example, say if the enforcement directorate, right, has seized a lot of cryptocurrencies. Now, where will be they keeping the cryptocurrencies? The cryptocurrencies cannot be stored in some physical lockers, right? So they will be storing the same at various digital assets, right? Or say they will be giving the various private company the custody to store them. Also, they will be trying to do the same via various specialized wallet providers. And this is exactly how this entire chain is happening. We also have a lack of awareness between the system itself, for example, between the judicial officers and the various police enforcement authorities, and so many issues are there. There are also technical snags or technical issues from the law enforcement side also, right? Even when we try to use various virtual private network or the VPNs which mask your internet ID or internet address and give it a new address, so it becomes also sometimes difficult for the law enforcement authorities to track the actual location of those criminals. Now, we have to understand that these are the issues which we have. Government of India also has imposed a straight form of taxation, that is a 40% tax on this kind of transactions on cryptocurrency blockchains. Also, from time to time, RBI also issues various warnings and advisories. Now, when we talk about regulation, we have to look at the global scenario. Firstly, when we talk about the EU, it has a MiCA law. It is the world's most comprehensive crypto regulation law, which talks about licensing, investor protection, and also stable coin regulation. Remember stable coin, I talked that it is actually having the best of the both worlds of cryptocurrencies and also the normal currencies or normal assets such as gold. Now in the US, there are multiple regulators who have been given powers to actually investigate the various scams and scandals. The Genius Act of 2025 also has a section dedicated to stable coins. Also, when we talk about Singapore and Japan, they have their own national laws and rules regarding the various anti-money laundering compliance, which involves cryptocurrencies too. In China, they have a near total ban on crypto trading and mining too. So this is exactly what we have on the global scenario. So when we talk about India, when we talk about our own country, we have to understand that India has a dilemma. India likes to have a balance of best of both worlds. That is why in 2020, while in 2018 the RBI tried to restrict some of the cryptocurrency transactions, in 2020 the Supreme Court tried to liberalize it. And that is why later the government of India also imposed a straight 40% tax. So we are trying to have a balanced approach. Now let us understand what the government should be doing. For example, if the government is liberalizing the cryptocurrencies and it is saying that okay, we will be regulating it, then it will send a message to the markets that government of India is endorsing the same. Or if we totally are banning it, then it will be sending a message to the criminals that you have to go underground right now. You have to do more black money. You have to do more money laundering right now. You have to open more informal exchanges, peer-to-peer exchanges in India, or say do more activities pertaining to illegal activities, right? Base your transactions internationally, make more tax havens, make more of these kind of illegal activities in the future. And that is why we have to understand the government of India is actually working on this issue. We are actually preparing a white paper or a document wherein we are trying to list the various concerns first. We will be coming with the various guidelines, and we are also looking at the various global frameworks. So maybe on the model of EU and the US, we can firstly try to go with stable coin regulation and then go with proper cryptocurrency regulation. And also we are trying to keep in compliance with the FATF. FATF, is a global watchdog on the various money laundering and the terror financing funds which take place all around the world. So this is what we are also trying to comply with and collaborate with. So this was all for the topic, which was a very, very long discussion. Yet there are so many other topics which are there. For the paucity of time, we are actually constrained to this extent only, which have been discussed in the article. Now, there are some questions in the past PYQs as you have seen. That is why right now you have more of the responsibility to practice this, maybe in the comments, so that I can also give you some feedback. Now we can actually move on to the next article. The Siliguri corridor is always in the news. Recently, we have the government of India building and constructing and bringing up new garrisons at the Siliguri corridor, which is also popularly known as Chicken's Neck. India is strengthening our eastern defenses due to some of the recent instances which are seen in the recent times. Now, when we talk about the perspective of the syllabus, from the perspective of GS3 with reference to security challenges, and mainly the challenges at the border areas are very, very important. And obviously we know that the Siliguri corridor, the Chicken Neck corridor, is actually at the borders. We have the borders of China, Nepal, Bhutan and Bangladesh, which are actually very, very close in proximity with this region. And that is why, to build up more defenses, the government of India has come up with 3 new garrisons. Firstly, we have the Lachit Borpukhan military station at Dhubri in Assam, as you can see here in this map. Then we have the forward base as Kishanganj in Bihar, if you can see, and the forward base as Chopra in West Bengal. And to give you a very, very brief introduction to Lachit Borpukhan, right, he has been an extremely able Ahom leader, right, and in 1971 he even led the forces to stop a major Mughal incursion into the northeastern states. So he is actually credited with a lot of bravery and courageous acts during his time. Now, apart from these 3 new garrisons, we also had 2 major developments in the recent time. Firstly, if you look at the Sikkim Express news, We have the Dokala and the Chola border areas which are open for tourism from October 1st in Sikkim, right? And this has been the corridors which have been opened under a new initiative known as the Bharat Ranbhumi Darshan, which is trying to promote battlefield tourism in the country. Battlefield tourism is a very, very interesting form of tourism wherein enthusiasts, including even me, would like to visit the various battlefields or say the past battlefields of our country and actually try to reminisce the various events which once occurred in those places, right? So this was actually done at Sikkim, at Doklam and Chola. If you can remember a little bit regarding Doklam, we had a major issue with China regarding the Doklam crisis. Over a period of time, the both countries tried to collaborate and kind of reduce the tensions. But still, the tensions are actually high, and the government of India is trying to promote these kind of initiatives. But a more serious thing is taking place. If you can see via these maps, these are the satellite maps. Some of the maps are actually China's version too. China sometimes time to time releases this kind of maps, or also for our own surveillance purposes, we try to scan the areas regarding near the various northeastern border areas, and there you have seen various Chinese activities increasing near Bhutan and Bangladesh borders, which are actually surrounding the West Bengal and Bihar and the Bhutan areas too, right? If you see, Chinese ambitions are taking a new fleet. This area earlier was actually snow-clad or say full of vegetation. This has been cleared near China borders and a new village has been constructed. Sometimes in Arunachal Pradesh, they try to straight away enter our own borders and build villages. And this kind of villages, they try to build sometimes even overnight. So you can actually imagine the scale of occupation of China with this kind of region. That is exactly why we have to understand the Siliguri corridor, the chicken neck corridor, is extremely, extremely important. There have been some popular opinion that this very term chicken neck should not be aligned with the Siliguri region, because Siliguri region has its own significance, has its own cultural vibrance. So let us from now only refer to it as Siliguri corridor, right? So Siliguri corridor is at its narrowest around 20 to 22 kilometers. So you can actually understand, right? If you can drive, it will be taking around say 1 to 2 hours, this entire region, right? And through this region of Siliguri corridor, there are more than 1 million vehicles and more than 2,000 tons of goods passing through it daily. Wherein, when we talk about this region, right, of this Siliguri corridor and the various goods and the people which are passing through, even to our northeastern seven sisters, so much so that if at all the Siliguri corridor is cut off, the northeast becomes physically isolated, and this is one of the reasons maybe while we are actually referring to as chicken necks also. For example, if you cut the head of a chicken, it will be dying off. Simply for that reason, we are trying to preserve the Siliguri corridor, maintain huge amount of say military installations near this region, and at any day, this area can be blocked by these following actions. Firstly, some war or some ambush can take place with reference to its anti-social elements, or the China, which is actually very, very involved right now in recent times, firstly with Bangladesh, right? Then, for example, China is also deepening ties with Bhutan. Over a period of time, it is also deepening in ties with Nepal. So this nexus brought in by China becomes very dangerous. Recently, we have also seen how insane amount of landslides and floods are making this region extremely, extremely, vulnerable. Also, when we talk about the insurgencies in northeastern region, now this northeastern region and the various insurgent groups present and active within this region actively use this Siliguri corridor for maybe moving into Nepal, because Nepal, informally is a very, very big global hub for the very undercover or say underground activities related to terrorism, related to money laundering, related to various illegal activities, right? And also, we cannot ignore the presence of the terror modules. Even with reference to the Operation Sindoor and the various other past instances of terrorism activities taking place in the rest of India, some of the other instances, some of the other people, some of the other investigation and the various other cases will definitely be taking place at Siliguri corridor. That means that Siliguri corridor is actually maybe a hotbed for the conduit of those terror groups through this region too. So this is exactly what we understand, that we are surrounded by multiple threats only at one region which is just 20 to 22 kilometers at its narrowest. So this is why let us analyze the present geopolitical risks in more detail. For example, look at the Chumbi Valley. It is just located towards the east of Sikkim border, right? And here we have the Chumbi Valley where the China is present. Straight away it is having a direct view at the Siliguri corridor here, right? And here when we talk about the Chinese presence at the Chumbi Valley, they're trying to build more villages, more infrastructure, and even near the Doklam Plateau to actually have active monitoring of Indian forces, Indian troop movements near the Siliguri corridor. So we have to understand that the neighbor, the Chinese neighbor, is always watching. Correct? Also, when we talk about the various workers and the surveillance present in even Bangladesh Rangpur region, so this has also been a cause of concern for our country. A new airbase at Lanmonirhat, which is only around 20 to 100 kilometers from the corridor, is also being envisaged by Bangladesh. Right? Now, when we talk about Bangladesh right now, Bangladesh under the recent Mohammad Yunus government has been extremely volatile and mainly been anti-India over a period of time. Even if you can see in this map, right, he is actually showing the northeastern part of our India as a part of Bangladesh's provinces, right? So that means that over a period of time, Bangladesh is becoming more close to China and Pakistan. They're trying to modify their own air bases into proper surveillance hubs. They're also bringing in more Chinese national in their own border regions, for example, in this particular section of our country. Also, you know, this map and this narrative that Bangladesh government is spreading internationally also within their own country is posing the security risk. Now, when we talk about Nepal's shift and tilt towards China, we also have seen how this Kalapani region near Uttarakhand or various other issues with the past Nepal administration has been at standpoint or standoff against India. And these kind of instances have been indirectly been fueled by China itself, right? Also, we have to talk about the natural disasters which took place. If you have seen the recent landslides at Darjeeling and the loss of lives of cattle, of so much infrastructure in the region, is also kind of a challenge for India to constantly keep upgrading, constantly keep the troops and the, say, disaster response forces at that particular region. And also, when we talk about internal stability of India's own, say, regions, we have the ethnic tensions in the northeast. Also, in the Darjeeling region, we have right now more calls for Gorkha land, right, which they are arguing for a new state. That means these are the tensions which are rising over a period of time. Also, the illegal immigration and migration from Bangladesh is fueling up various tensions, right, in our Siliguri corridor. There have been instances where there are allegations of Pakistanis ISI collaborating with Bangladesh, right, wherein this cattle smuggling, this drug smuggling, the various issues which are taking place in the borders are also facilitated via these borders. Next, the communal conflict, which is increasing in the border areas, mainly along the entire Indian border with Bangladesh, is also kind of a tipping point for our own concerns. So this is exactly why the Indian government over a period of time has improved the connectivity and infrastructure strategy in these regions. Firstly, quickly, when I talk about the army development and the various features that we have seen, that we have right now more than around 1 lakh personnel deployed at these borders, right? We also have the Tri-Shakti Corps which are present at Sukna, right? Next, when we talk about the specialized units, we have specialized mountain units, guys. These are actually prepared for any event, even in the cases of a Siliguri blackout. For example, for any reason, maybe the Siliguri corridor is, facing some threat, God forbid that, right? Our mountain forces and all the troops are actually prepared for that event. We also have the Tishta Prahar and the Tri-Shakti Prahar exercises which are taking place in the Siliguri corridor. When we talk about the air and missile power, we have our Rafale jets, S-400 air defense system, the BrahMos missiles, the MiGs and the various drones that we have deployed at Bagdogra, which is just present south of the Siliguri corridor. When we talk about the paramilitary forces, we have the BSA, we have the SSB, the ITBP, the CRPF and the various multi-agency drills which have been taking place since time immemorial. Also, when we talk about the Siliguri alternatives, right, when we actually are talking right now to also look at other alternatives other than the Siliguri corridor, we also have the Kaladan multimodal project, wherein we are trying to link Kolkata and use the Bay of Bengal, connect with Sitwe in Myanmar, and then using the road access of Myanmar region to reach our northeastern states. So this is one way through the sea that we can use. Also, we have the India, Myanmar, Thailand trilateral highway, which is also using the Bay of Bengal route to connect India, Myanmar, Thailand via trilateral highway here. Also, we have the Bangladesh transit route, for example, maybe with proper collaboration with Bangladesh in recent times, right? Maybe in the future, we can have the Akhara-Agartala rail route be constructed. Also, the Feni Bridge and the access to Chittagong and Mongla ports, which the Indian government can also demand for. Next, we are also having new rail projects, the Sivok Rangpo railway station to Sikkim, which is a legendary route which is being designed right now. Next, we also are planning the India-Bhutan railway. When we talk about the tunnel project, we have the Sela tunnel at Arunachal Pradesh. We have the Chicken Neck tunnel project, which is a 22-kilometer long road tunnel. Also, we are having a combination of roads, helipads and various other mountainous tunnels too. Next, finally, when we talk about improving the various border infrastructure of our country in this region, we are talking about constructing around 1500 kilometers of road when we talk about the border regions here. Also, we are conceptualizing the Trans-Arunachal Pradesh highway, and under the Vibrant Village program, we are trying to improve the developmental parameters of the villages, improving the economic livelihood, giving various government facilities, improving village infrastructure in those areas. And this is exactly what the new garrisons are also trying to do. They are trying to increase our surveillance based on the forward observation and the BSF patrolling. Also, they are trying to reduce our reaction time, for example, with reference to the various contingencies, so that the three garrisons which are present in very close geographical proximity, they can take some actions. Also, with reference to data, the logistics and the various supplies, these garrisons will be very, very important. But the most important thing is regarding the joint readiness. So the joint readiness will be with reference to the various Indian Air Force assets, the missiles, the various air defense systems which are going to be installed at these garrisons. Hence, we are trying to improve our overall defense eyes and ears in the region. And at the end of the day, we are also trying to have civil-military cooperation in the region too, right? But we need to do more, right, guys? Because this small length, Siliguri corridor, is extremely vulnerable, extremely vulnerable. That is why we cannot depend only with our own efforts. We have to reach out to Bangladesh to sort out the various issues that we have. Maybe we can actually talk about the various regime which is actually taking place in Bangladesh and how we can sort out the issues using diplomacy. Also, we need to use technology and surveillance using AI, using machine learning, using drones, using various satellites to actually scan the region and maybe have digital borders. Next, we are trying to have integrated border management where the various forces with reference to BSF, army and even the local police must be involved in this coordination event. We need to build our infrastructure based on the various projects that we have seen so far. We have to improve the projects and we have to spend more time and more funds in the region. Next, in all this pursuit, we should not be losing the sight of environmental concerns. EIA or the environmental impact assessment must be conducted properly with reference to the various border roads, tunnels or the bridges being constructed. And at the end of the day, the regional security architecture with reference to the collaboration with BIMSTEC or the ASEAN countries are extremely important for India to follow up in the coming years. So this is a mains practice question for all of you at the end of the topic. We will be now moving on to the simplified articles. Guys, the editorial here is talking about mainly the Forest Rights Act of India and how this has not been functioning well in the country via a case study that we will be trying to understand. So this discussion will be very, very important for your prelims about the very basics of Forest Rights Act. And secondly, for mains, you should not be missing the case study that I'm going to refer. Firstly, when we talk about the prelims pointer, regarding the Indian Forest Rights Act. This has been a landmark legislation which is actually one of the few legislation which is very important for the scheduled tribes of our country. Why? Because historically the scheduled tribes in our country have been deprived of property rights in the forested regions. Especially the forest dwellers or the tribal people who have been living for generations and generations in the forest regions, they have been deprived of the property rights. This has been started from the colonial times only. Over a period of time, over independence and after a lot of struggles, we have come up with this 2006 Act to empower the communities here. So this particular act is giving the ST tribals and the various other forest dwellers tenurial security, or say the land tenure, which will be awarded to them if they prove their occupation, that they have occupied these forest lands or these areas prior to December 13, 2005. That means that before just this act came up, right? So before that time period, if you were holding the forest land or if have been generationally been residing in that land, then you can have your recognition of the community right over forest and the forest products. We will be exploring this more in detail in the next one. Now, here when we talk about this act here, the conversion of all forest villages and habitation located inside the forest land have been done into revenue villages. That means that these forest areas wherein the tribals were living in, they are right now recognized as revenue villages, and in cases of any kind of rehabilitation of the displaced people, for example, if there are some mining projects, some hydroelectric projects or some tourism project which will be taking place in that forest area, for which the forest land had to be cleared and the people had to be displaced, for them also the rehabilitation must be done with a proper compensation. And we have to also understand that the people or the tribal peoples who have been displaced before 2005 without compensation, proper compensation, they must be right now relocated, or say in situ relocation within that forest itself, right? Also the recognition of ancestral domain or habitat right with reference to the various particularly vulnerable tribal groups, which are actually those tribal groups which are facing very low levels of population, cultural backwardness and very less integration with the general mainstream Indian society. They are also given special attention. So this is exactly what we have to understand. For the implementation of the Forest Right Act, we have empowered the Gram Sabha. So the decision of the Gram Sabha with reference to the forest rights and the recognition has been held primary. Next, with reference to eviction, they are also being protected that without compensation you cannot be evicted. And also the various title deeds, or say the land deeds, or say the property deeds, or say the property documents which have been recognized for the various forest dwellers, they are also been issued from 2006 onwards. So based on that, we have two sections of people who are eligible. Firstly, the scheduled tribes who have been residing plus dependent on the forest areas. The cutoff date is 13th December 2005, and the other forest dwelling communities who have been residing plus dependent with reference to the forest for at least the past 75 years prior to 2005. So apart from scheduled tribes in our Indian forest, we also have various other forest dwellers too. For them also the act is recognizing the various rights. Now when we talk about the various rights here, we have the individual forest rights, wherein you have your right to hold, you have your right to leave, and also the various residence or self-cultivation, that is up to 4 hectares per family. And this is having a cutoff date that we have discussed earlier. Next, when we talk about the community right, now when we talk about the individual right, this can be given to one person here, right? But when we talk about the community rights, an entire area is selected and all the peoples who have been residing in those region will be getting the proper rights of various grazing, collection of firewood, fishing, access to water bodies, etc. Even if there are some various sacred groves or sacred community, forest communities, right? So these are also the areas which are given protection in the community forest right. Apart from that, also if there are some new projects which will be taking place in that forest, those communities have the right to deny consent for the diversification of the forest land. So that is why the Gram Panchayat and the community there becomes extremely important when we talk about the diversion of forest land. Also, when we talk about the community forest resource rights, the Gram Sabha have the right to protect, regenerate, conserve and also manage the forest. So that is why the Gram Sabhas are also actually given various specialized funds by the state governments for this purpose. We have a legal protection against any commercial exploitation or eviction. But over a period of time, if you can see, the individual forest right titles in at least 3 districts of Chhattisgarh have disappeared. That means individual forest rights are not being given to various people. For example, in Chhattisgarh, and also 50% of the forest titles or say the community titles have been reduced within the last month with reference to some areas in Chhattisgarh. So that is why the implementation of Forest Rights Act have been called into question many times in the past. So this is why we have a practice question for all of you, right? From the PYQs, let me know in the comments below. And at the end of the day, we have the case study finally. What happened, guys? Adivasis at a small village in Chhattisgarh known as Gadbara village, they have lost their legally recognized right, not by the government, but by the country's judiciary, that is the State High Court. The State High Court recently cancelled the community forest rights which were earlier legally recognized. And this was a 9-year long legal struggle which will, in my opinion, will be continuing further. Imagine the lives of these local Adivasis. So they have been living in this forest for generations. At one point of time, what happened actually was that there was actually a mining project which was proposed in the forest. All of the local Adivasis, they opposed vehemently, but despite that, lakhs of trees were cut and their lands were diverted. And later, when various NGOs and social rights activists took up their case at the judiciary, from the lower judiciary to the State High Court, right? Then the State High Court, what they're telling, that rather than restoring their rights, the High Court actually dismissed the petition as a mistake, and further the High Court also told that any rights that these communities or the Adivasis are right now claiming can be compensated in money right now. So indirectly the High Court is telling that you can take the money and stop your protest, right? So this is what the article is suggesting, what the coverage is suggesting right now, and this is exactly what we have to understand, that this High Court reasoning is legally flawed. Most possibly this matter can go up to the Supreme Court and then maybe we can get some justice. Because firstly we have to understand that rights in the forest are recognized and these are free of various encumbrances. For example, say if there already is a mining project that is going on in the forest, right, and for which the consent has not been properly taken from the community people, the government must be removing that project immediately. But the government should not be cancelling the forest rights or say the community forest rights of the people. What the government has done is the opposite. The government has let the mining project go on and cancel the community forest rights. Right now, for which the High Court is actually telling you can take money for that. This is not done. FRA also requires the settlement of rights before diversion. Right? FRA has clearly told that before any project starts, the Gram Sabha or the various authorities, they must be finalizing the modus operandi, not after diversion. The court case is dragging for 9 years. This is not done. Also, the Gram Sabha consent is mandatory. In case of the Supreme Court Niyamgari case 2013, the Supreme Court has clearly told that if the Gram Sabha is not agreeing, you cannot do anything. In this case, actually, according to various reports, the Gram Sabha actually did not agree, but the state government went ahead with the project. Also, the compensation in money violates the core philosophy of Forest Rights Act, which, if you can remember, right, me speaking at the very beginning, was about the historical injustice. The tribal population has over centuries faced historical injustice. They did not get access to their customary rights in the name of our great Indian railway which was being constructed back then. The forest people lost their livelihood. God knows where their communities are, where those people are right now. They are not having any land. At least we must be ensuring that the present tribal population live in peace with their own habitat and with their own nature. Now we will be moving on to the next topic. Guys, to trouble you, I have another editorial for all of you, which is based on the internationalization of Rupee. Now, internationalization of Rupee has been in the recent times in the news a lot of times because of the various global conflicts which are taking place, and also the uncertainty of the US policies and the domination of US dollar. Let us understand everything and try to link it. Now, guys, whenever we are talking about international trade, only one currency comes to our mind, that is the dollar. With reference to various transactions for goods and services, for some investment, for some loans, we are always using dollars, right? 2022 was the turning point when the Russia-Ukraine crisis happened, and US imposed a lot of sanctions on Russia, and Russia became very angry with Russia. US also tried to impose various sanctions on countries which bought in or imported Russian oil or various other Russian commodities, which also angered countries like us, India also. And this is exactly when we started thinking of not only using dollars for trade. We can also use our own Indian rupee for trade, for investment, for borrowing, for lending. Even some other countries would like to keep our own Indian rupee in their foreign exchange reserve, because going forward India is going to become a developed country and the value of rupee is going to appreciate in the coming years with reference to other currencies, if not dollars maybe. So that is why even in the recent times, if you can see, the Reserve Bank of India have actually gave a nod or said yes to use rupees to trade with various other countries, as you can see in this list here. So as of now, right now, the government is actually trying to actively engage in trade using rupees with reference to these countries. And this is exactly what we have to understand. We are relying less on the hard currencies or those currencies which are actually very stable like the dollar and very high demand like the dollar, and we are trying to move on to our own Indian rupees. So this is actually what is happening right now. If you can look at the recent data, the International Finance Corporation has committed over $30 billion in 67 local currencies, right, through the various local products between 2015 and 24. That means the countries, for example, even India, are increasing the use of their own local currencies. Also, the Asian Development Bank, it is reporting that the local currency loans from Asian Development Bank has increased and reached 50% of its total private sector lending. So that the private sector who is taking loans from ADB are taking loans in their own local currencies. Even for example, if an Indian private sector company is taking loans from ADB, we are taking in rupees. That is why we are moving into a multi-currency world. Firstly, as we have discussed, due to the various geopolitical tensions, firstly the Russia-Ukraine crisis, then came the sanctions, then Indian government tried to trade in rupee, and we are also trying to diversify with various other partners too. Now, there are various sanctions on Iran and Russia, which we are actually trying to use rupees. Also, the countries are having themselves and sentiment to move towards local currencies and lessen their dependence on USD, that is a dollar, and due to which this is also angering Mr. Trump, right? Next, we are also seeing the rise of digital payments, cross-border transactions are right now becoming actually very, very easy. So from the old way where we are actually dependent on the dollar, indirectly we are dependent on the US, indirectly we are dependent on the US Fed or their own central bank and the US national government for the use of dollar. We are right now having a new strategy of internationalization. We are trying to promote rupee, we are trying to promote more and more local currency settlements and using UPI. But there's a challenge, guys. When we talk about international trade and the transactions, these are very complex. Imagine a simple scenario that India-Russia trade is $72 billion. For example, this is Russia here. Now Russia is selling crude oil to us. So whenever the Russian crude oil suppliers will be making an invoice or a bill, they will be mentioning in which currency the bill is written, right? So it is their choice, it is on their behalf that dollar or rupee or ruble will be sought for. Now in India, whenever we will be making the payments, we will be trying to make the payments here. So we are also having a choice to make in what currency. But here, when we talk about the India and Russia trade here, most of the bills are actually made in USD itself or their own currency, because Russia would either go for rubles or they will be wanting more dollars, because till now, despite internationalization, we have dollars which are actually more popular internationally. So that is why we have to understand that this trade between India and Russia is mostly composed of primary goods. 80%, for example, are based on commodities such as crude oil or gold. We are not exporting high-tech, say, electronic items or various other components to Russia. We are actually importing extremely primary goods for which the Russia has the upper hand in negotiating with us. And that is why we have actually more of USD which is being used right now. According to this editorial here, very low value chain integration is done in India. And that is why no one actually wants to take INR. On the other hand, INR or Indian rupee sometimes is even volatile because it is not yet a hard currency, right? And that is why we need some things to understand. Firstly, when we have understood that these invoicing and settlement is a very important thing. That is why the article and the author is arguing that we have to diversify our trade partners. We are going to talk about that. But firstly, we have to make the Indian exporters aware of the various currency volatility with reference to the, say, rupee or say the various other concerns. These are actually only short term. We have to educate them that please don't be afraid of this volatility. Try to transact using more rupees. Over a period of time, the system will be stabilized, right? Also, with reference to the local currency settlement system, plus making this system popular on various other multilateral organizations, we have to understand right now, we are using more of Nostro and Vostro accounts. See, Nostro simply means that it is an account held by our bank, for example, say SBI, in foreign currency at another bank, right? And the Vostro means that it is an account held by a foreign bank, for example, say any UAE bank, in domestic currency at our bank. So it is just a very simple thing that the accounts and the domestic currencies must be properly designated for easy transactions, for direct country-to-country transactions. So for this arrangement, we have the same with UAE, Indonesia, Mauritius and Maldives. And this is why when we talk about multilateralizing it, we are trying to make it more popular, more acceptable, even with reference to the various other BRICS countries. But recently Donald Trump has also promised more than 50% tariffs if we go ahead with this idea. But I think we should not be afraid of such kind of threats. Also, we can use UPI as a strategic weapon. We have a lot of diaspora abroad, we have a lot of Indian tourists abroad, and that is why we have also allowed this kind of cross-border UPI transactions in Bhutan, Nepal, Singapore, UAE, France, Sri Lanka, Mauritius and Qatar. And also there has been a recent question which I will be showing you at the end of this discussion. Next, we are also trying to link the various messaging systems of transactions. You know guys that internationally we are right now using SWIFT messaging platform, which are trying to have all the various banks all across the world on one platform, which is trying to simplify the transactions, but it is very costly and it is kind of slower. Why not come with our own Indian SWIFT messaging system? It will be faster, it will be safer and cheaper. And at the end of the day, perhaps the most important implication and the need is that we must be trying to diversify our trade, guys. We must be going from the primary commodities to very high value commodities, and then only we will be having, settlement kind of a advantage. For example, right now Russia is, mainly engaged with 80% of exports to India in cases of commodity items. So Russia has the upper hand in bargaining what currency that they need. For example, if right now we dominate this situation, we reverse the situation, that means India becomes more and more of a kind of an exporter to Russia in cases of some items such as machinery, electronics, cars, pharmaceutical services, then Indian exporters themselves can seek more rupees for transactions. So this is exactly what we have to do. We have to diversify our trading basket. So this is the question that we actually saw in 2025 prelims. Let me know what is the answer in the comments below. And also this question, which is actually very easy because it came way back in 2017. Now we will be moving on to the next topic. The government of India is very interested into tapping into global precision medicine market. Let us actually understand the entire concept from the very basic level. Firstly, when we talk about normal medicines, which are known as chemical medicines or traditional medicines, these are the medicines, for example, if someone has a fever, that person can take a paracetamol and hence the fever can be controlled or reduced. Now the same paracetamol medicine can be taken by me, can be taken by you, by anyone else who has a fever. That means that this kind of medicines are one size fits all policy. But in real life, our own biology or say biological composition are different, right? Our own heart, our lungs, our brain, our kidneys, our own blood types, genetic codes, everything are different. That is why not we have customized medicines? Why not we have medicines for each and every one of us? Because there are sometimes the common issues, the fever, the cold, cough, stomach issues, the diarrhea, and all those things which are quite manageable using chemical drugs. But there are some specialized kind of drugs. For example, the heart ailments, cancer, and so many other aspects, they can only be cured using biotherapeutics. Or these are those modern biological medicines which are actually made from living cells, RNA, DNA, proteins, antibodies, etc. So let us actually understand these are the precision biotherapeutics which actually tell that your diseases and the various other aspects are totally treatable using personalized medicines, because these are the medicines which are designed only for your own body, and these medicines will be telling your own body molecules and cells what exactly to do in your own body, right? So exactly we have to understand how these are working. In a very simplistic way, understand that these therapeutics or biotherapeutics made of various other modes. Firstly, we have genomic and progenomic analysis, which generally means that a person's or your genetic and protein signatures will be identified to look into various mutations and various issues or not. That means your own genetic, your own DNA will be looked at, right? Very simply. Next, there are other techniques such as gene editing therapies. For example, you have heard about CRISPR-Cas9 technology, wherein this CRISPR-Cas9 will be looking at that segment of your DNA which is maybe diseased, which need repair. So what it will do, it will go into this area and this will cut that section and it will be inserting its own section in this DNA, so that your diseased DNA is right now totally healthy. So this is exactly how gene editing therapies, one of them is used by CRISPR. Also, there are other ways in which these therapies can be done using mRNA and nucleic acid therapies, wherein we are actually using RNA molecules right now to actually tell the cells what exactly to do, what exactly proteins we have to manufacture. And next, we have monoclonal antibodies and biologics, which are laboratory engineered molecules, right? Which are, man-made molecules which bind to various disease targets such as the cancer cells and the vital protein, and we try to eradicate them. And at the end of the day, we can also use technology such as artificial intelligence to actually look into the various drug discovery or say where that drug will be targeted in our body. So this is exactly what we have to understand, that precision medicine is extremely important, right? Firstly, to actually predict the various early disease risk. If that is a genetic cause, we can actually try to predict it way before. Also, with reference to personalized treatment, it is different for everyone. It is technological driven. We are using AI in that. We can have more better diagnostic from people to people comparisons, and we can also avoid the various side effects, because without personalized medicine, right, there can be some groups of people who can actually have various adverse side effects, which is not the same in personalized medicine. And also over a period of time, we have seen food-based care, immuno-ACT, which are the various private initiatives in this area in India itself. And when we talk about India, right, we have to understand that nearly 65% of the deaths are due to these cardiovascular illnesses, diabetes, or cancers. And this is exactly what we have to understand, given the huge genetic diversity of India, right? It is very difficult to have a uniform medicine for all. Also, that is why Indigen program and Genome India program are actually looking at, various therapies which can cure cancer one day. And that is why there are so many Indians which are giving trials, and these facilities are being tested in the country. And this is why the global precision medicine market is shaping up in a big way. On the economy side, if you can see, the APAC, which is the Asian Pacific region, is the fastest growing region. And in India, we have to understand, we have the skilled work phase, we have the various data analytics trend, the cost advantage, which can help us actually pioneer a great scale of, precision medicine. When on a global level, it is actually expected to reach up to $22 billion by 2027. And that is why India via the Department of Biotechnology has identified precision medicine as one of the 6 focus areas under the Bio E3 policy, that is biotechnology for economy, environment and employment. But the author also is highlighting the various issues that in India we do not have yet a clear regulatory framework for the different medical technologies that we are talking about in the case of gene and cell therapy, so that we have to come up with that. Also, the guidelines that we have existing right now, these are limiting the use of emerging technologies due to various ethical concerns, right? We have the privacy issues, we have the genetic data where this data can go to the private companies and sometimes even internationally, so that we need to have a proper robust figure here. Also, limited local manufacturing, also the high cost of precision medicine are those inhibiting factors in the recent times. So now we'll be moving on to the next one. Guys, in this article we are actually talking about the basics of tier 2 bonds. We are going to understand why the Indian banks are raising up to 25,000 crore via these tier 2 bonds. But firstly, let us understand the very basics of a bank's balance sheet, which is composed of assets and liabilities. On the asset side, we have loans to customers because the banks earn interest rates and that is why they are assets for the banks. The banks also have the various investments done in various other companies or maybe in other banks or say abroad, for which they are also getting returns, and also the various cash it has. On the other hand, the bank has on the liability side 2 things, one capital and one debt. On the capital side, the banks have the capital, that is their own money that they have, or say the shareholders' money, that the investors' money, right? And obviously on the other hand, they have their retained profits, the profits that they have retained over a period of time. On the liability side, we also have the debt, in which the banks also sometimes take loans from others, the deposits from various customers, and the debt securities that they issue to various others. For example, so the bonds that they issue to the others. Now, when we talk about the bank's balance sheet and the capital, we have to understand if a bank has a sufficient level of capital, right, and yet it suffers a loss, it can use its excess capital to actually balance the various losses it faces, right, without the bank shutting down, without the depositors losing their money. And that is why we have had Basel norms, which actually tells that a bank's capital must be very, very, very strong. So that is why we have some concepts known as CAR and so many other things which are going to look at. But before that, let me know what are the answers to these PYQs. Now, when we talk about the tier 2 bonds, these are those bonds which are actually issued by the banks to boost their capital base and actually support their business operations. So based on that capital side that we have actually looked at right now, the tier 2 bonds are those bonds which are issued for around 5 years and they help the bank have more safe capital, right? In cases of some losses, right, the various capitals and say the shareholders' money are at stake, and that is why if you can look at this figure, this is the customer which actually talks about us and our money in the banks, right? And this is the tier 1 capital, which is the bank's own money. Right? This is the bank's own money itself, not the shareholders' money, right? And in the middle, we have this right now, which is the tier 2 capital, right? This is just adding a cushion between the depositors and the tier 1 capital, between various other instruments also which are there as a part of bank's capital, right? And that is why we have to understand that due to Basel norms, which are the international norms to have enough liquidity or money in the bank to keep the depositors' money safe, and that is why they have proposed a formula known as the capital adequacy ratio. That means the eligible capital divided by the risk-weighted capital or the risky loans for which the banks may have poor collateral value or various other issues with the loans, divided by this, which is the ratio of the capital adequacy ratio. So the banks must be having a higher capital ratio. The more higher, the more safe the banks are. Now, in India, we have the CAR in double digits, and when we talk about double digits, we generally mean that if the banks in the near future would want to give more loans, right, they need to have more tier 1 or tier 2 or various other tiers of capital, right? So this gives an additional cushion for future credit growth. So if the banks in India are anticipating that over a period of time that the Indian economy will be taking more loans from the banks, they would have to be prepared, because the Basel norms tell that they have to keep a certain amount of CAR, right, and below that it cannot take, and that is why they can face some various penalty provisions. And that is why right now we are increasing the tier 2 bonds, mainly of these three reasons. Firstly, we are seeing a strong demand for long-term duration bonds, mainly by the corporate sector, because we are witnessing economic growth in the country, and that is why the long-term duration bonds are increasing in the country. And maybe this 5-year tier 2 bonds can also be purchased via various people also, right? These are kind of safer bonds. The second reason is that the RBI is expected to cut the repo rate due to lower inflation in the recent report. Now, you know guys, if you are reducing your interest rates, right, in the future, that means that the present interest rates are higher right now, right, and that is why, you know, in the future people expect that the repo rate will be going down. And you know, by the same relation which we have covered in the earlier analyst also, that whenever the repo rates goes down, the bond prices goes up and the bond yields go down. That means in the future that the bond yields will be going down. So it is the best time right now to actually buy bonds, and that is why these tier 2 bonds are also being released at higher interest rates, so that actually people can actually invest more in them. And the third reason is that obviously in the country, people are taking more loans, they are doing business, they are actually having more business opportunities, and due to which the banks also have to keep more CAR as buffers, more tier 1, tier 2 as buffers, right? Also, the provident and the pension funds are also expected to increase the investment over the next couple of months, and maybe they can buy these tier 2 bonds too. So this is exactly what the topic was about, and let us now move on to the last one. Guys, you know, the COP30 is full of so many initiatives and mechanisms in the news. It is very important for us, for our prelims mainly, to be aware of them, because there have been some PYQs in the past based on the various ongoing COPs. Now, the very first thing that is regarding this article is regarding climate finance. It is the money that the developing countries need for climate mitigation, for example, for transitioning to green energy, to clean energy, electric vehicles, solar energy, and also for climate adaptation. These are two different concepts. Adaptation is linked with managing flood, heat waves, coastal erosion, drought profiling. So these are sometimes a long-term prospect, right? And also climate finance will be used for protecting ecosystems of forest, biodiversity, and under the Paris Agreement, under the UNFCCC, it is a legal obligation. Mainly when we talk about the UNFCCC mechanism, we have the Green Climate Fund. The headquarters of the same is at South Korea, and it was established in 2010, formally brought in during the Paris Climate Agreement deal of 2015 onwards, right? It is a fund which is supporting the developing countries, and it is reporting and accountable to the COP30 and the COPs which will be taking place under the UNFCCC. Wherein as of now, when we talk about the climate finance architecture, it is the world's largest institutional mechanism as of now, which has contributed around $19 billion as of now, committed the same, but only a quarter has been properly allocated when we talk about spending the money. Now, there is a PYQ for all of you, 2015. Let me know in the comments what is the solution here. But when we talk about the climate gap, as we have seen, $19 billion, only a quarter of it, right, which has been allocated, for example, to the tune of maybe $5 billion. So this is exactly what we understand, that climate gap is increasing. And that is why countries like India is proposing a country platform, which will be a one unified national window to receive climate finance. This will be a national portal for every different country, for which the green projects for adaptation and mitigation will be approved on the same. The various priorities will be determined, and coordination with the Green Climate Fund will be done, right? So India already has been engaged with the GCF in the past, and right now it is proposing this kind of platform with a governance of having steering committee at the top and supported by mainly as of now the African Climate Foundation. The funding can be expected to be around $4 million, but let us wait for the final terms. As you can see, there are so many countries, even from the African island states and so many other countries, which have actually shared the vision to make this a reality, and mostly the countries are also having a vision to have their own country specific and group platforms in this particular initiative. So this was actually the various events which took place regarding this country platform. There is a kind of a comprehensive flowchart for all of you regarding the various climate finance architecture. Please do go through it properly. And when we talk about the GCF and India, in India, we have 11 projects worth around $700 to $800 million in coastal livelihood, clean water, and various other aspects. But the main problem with reference to Green Climate Fund is that these are in the form of concessional loans. We need a long-term loan, unconditional loan in this aspect. And this is where the Environmental Ministry, which is the main agency in India, monitoring and contributing and giving inputs to the GCF, will be instrumental in how this country platform will be envisaged. So this was the end of this discussion today. You all have been a very patient audience. I thank you for your patience. Please do attempt the quiz which is following up. All the best and best of luck till we meet again. Thank you.